are you? Good.
So we really need a lot of inter-district transfers.
Yeah, we'll nail it.
Set a tone, and then we're not going to have money. So we're going to get this raise. I can guarantee you we'll have a deficit. We'll be to that next year. Probably go down 2.5%. Like we've done in the past. Because our facilities are falling apart, and you're going to have to go through the general fund to repair them. Which is a problem.
I don't know what else they could cut, really. Find new programs for you.
I know. Yeah. And we're supposed to cut more, so I don't know where we are with all of that piece, but we're supposed to continue in LSS, be looking at, you know. I'm really surprised. We're handling it. Please come in the shares and say no. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll put it back up in November again. Better, according to Carol, Carol's just felt like really hard in Poway, as you know, with that other debacle of that other. Which they should. I mean, nothing was illegal about it, but it is $1 billion.
I mean, you can't get around it.
I'm gonna throw trash away first.
At 8 o'clock.
Coronavirus.
We discovered major asbestos. Okay, now we need money. Okay, now we get it. But it's hard. I mean, you know, we have an aging community in Poway where there's a very small percentage of homes that have kids in Poway Unified. Yes, we try to market that whole thing, the value of our house goes because of the value of the schools, but people don't get that, and some and a lot don't care. Because I'm not selling my house, there's nowhere to go to, it's so expensive, like all of us know. I mean, you know, like me, it's like, are you ever going to move from your house? No, I'm not moving from my house. Why would I? Where would I go? Everything is much more expensive, and you have to pay taxes on it.
Anytime. I may not know the answer, but
Even downside.
I know you always do.
I still have to pay a more than I pay.
But don't let it go to her head.
I know, it's.
I mean, no, we need to stop that right now.
Like for these people, that's why the
Well,
cost
here
of
you
a
go.
home,
I worked with her
because
for 2
when they bought
2
their
months.
homes, it
I
was
would
like
say
in the 400
2 years.
and 500, although they're valued now at 800, 900, whatever they are now. But that's, yeah.
She didn't like us, so she.
No, I was gonna say Jill said leave now. So I left.
Yeah.
So is that seat stage, is that where?
No, it's not. I live over here.
Although,
So what we're gonna do is.
Everything shifts. We can't keep on going to the moon. We can afford that. Every month, there's something like that. Like in Carlsbad, it's another 8% increase, a 9% increase. It's like, who is buying these homes?
although mine was gone.
And so is Stacy just sold her for a swing, and it was going in 2 seconds as well. Well, that, I get it. It should.
I didn't know if it was opposite.
I don't. Maybe it should.
I think
Maybe it should.
one that I think will get out of and what do they do? Shut it down. Then you know what's we kind of
Is this beginning? Okay. Well, we're ready, man. We're ready.
Thank you.
That. Test, 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 test. Hello, hello.
Oh, by the way, if worse comes to worse and you don't stop, then we throw the egg.
Stop, stop. I won't be going on. I can.
Didn't know if there would just be multiple people from each one.
In fact, we should probably
About it. That's why Stacey is.
Just wondering what it was, what IT was doing separate.
Oh, answering questions. Did I just?
I think we needed to bring up presentation.
Yes.
It was, we were hoping
Oh,
that you
and
could fill like an hour.
25 pages, yeah.
Single
And a
space,
report, yes.
8 point.
Can we turn off those lights? I'm not sure which one, only because the PowerPoint and the sun. I heard you're Jamie, I'm Gloria.
Hi, Gloria. Nice to meet you.
I'm not sure where, see,
Yeah, I forget where they were.
Christina knows, she knows everything.
Curriculum and all that.
Forces two people to meet.
Loves it, she came in.
And if one person stops, the whole thing stops. That safety mechanism thing.
So you don't have to start right.
No, but as long as you're both turning, they stop. It's funny watching it slow. Just drop it right off the ground.
You don't have to.
Like I'm not doing it.
In the front row. Principal's in the front row, right?
That's right.
Huh? This is your seat in the very front?
You say principal's in the front row?
Yeah.
Oh, he's not a principal.
Former. He's never stopped being a principal.
Oh, that already.
Never stopped.
They make more money than I do. We got demoted, man. Come on now. I need to rub salt in the wound.
Talk about how much Doug loves doing.
Oh my God! What is it now?
So we'll get started in about 1 minute. If people want to start moving towards table and seat.
Diane, I see where
For candy to hand out again?
yes, but you sit there, would you? You look so pretty. Thank you.
Okay, let's go ahead and get going. My name is Jamie Dayhoff. I'm Director of Attendance and Discipline for... Thank you. Let's not set the tone, right? So, and actually, I'm just really... I don't know about you guys. I can't believe we're at this meeting already. It's just unbelievable, because this is the trigger for the crazy shift over to the whole enrollment registration and all of that world. So, but here we are, right? So thank you so much for coming this morning. We're going to move through this agenda, and I'll give you a little more information, but Youth in Transition, we're going to be talking about the online continuing registration, new student enrollment, technology, innovation transfers, EL, and then the Healthy Kids Survey. Special Ed will be here giving some information, health, and then breakout sessions. So really more on the breakout session. I know, yeah.
There's one right there.
So actually, I didn't realize we already started that. So if you see, like last year, we're doing the bingo thing. So I'm actually going to have Gloria explain that, the bingo. My background is not very strong in bingo, so.
On the slides, you'll see different little school images. So when you see that, mark it out. And we're going to do where you fill up the whole card this time, because last time when we did it, it was just like a row, and too many people won. So anyway, we'll do that. And then also you have index cards on your table. Write any questions that you have on that. And during our break, you can drop them off in the questions basket over here near the door. Thank you.
Thank you. That was the most important part, right? So I'm going to do some introductions. From LSS, we've got Doug Johnson right here. Kimberly Renz, she's at another meeting, but she will be here. Kimmy Lachfeld, I don't know if you guys know Kimmy. There she is in the back. She is our new executive director. And Todd Casson in the corner over here. As I stated earlier, Jamie Dayhoff, They put James up there. Either one's fine. Gloria Tran, who handles attendance. Stephanie Good. And Barbara Texera. I also want to add Stacy Davis, who is like really the core of the LSS team right there. And then for the SIS support group over at this table here, we have Mark Griffin. Mark's back there. Diane Kodetic. She's the quiet one right over here. Yeah.
Good morning, everybody.
Yeah. Laura Morrow. And then Mickey Krabinski. Where's Mickey? There she is there. Anybody else that I missed here? Special education, back in the corner over here. Jody Payne is not here, but Tiffany King is here. And then Lorelei, is she in? Okay, but Lorelei, you guys know all this SPED directors, right? Mercedes and Katie. I saw Katie. Here's Katie. And then Stacy Monroe is going to do our health work right over here. And then Cindy Hicks will do our Healthy Kids survey, and she'll be here for that. I hope that she'll be here. Okay, so let's move on. So basically, let me go back actually to this meeting just so we have a good frame for what we're doing. So the idea is that like from 8 to 10, we're going to do this training, give you information. There is new information, and I want you to know that we are trying to make things very consistent and standard. We're trying to get things down on paper and make things more concrete than they have been in the past as far as procedures. And so you'll see a lot of that. So 8 to 10, we're going to be doing that. We'll be moving through. There's a basket over there for questions because we are moving through the information pretty quick. You have cards on your table in the middle for those questions, and just stick them into that basket there. And then basically at 10 o'clock, and the candy's not for like prizes. Candy's for when people go over their speaking time, and candy gets thrown at people. So at 10 a.m. sharp, we are going into a break, and that will transition. We'll have a 9 o'clock break too, but at 10 o'clock is when we transition to smaller groups, because what we thought was secondary versus elementary, there's a lot of differences in those groups. So maybe making some time for us to discuss some of these changes and answer some questions with those particular groups. So that'd be at 10:15, and really around 11:30 we're going to be through here. Okay. So important dates: February 1, we already started, as you know, the intra-district transfer process. We opened that up February 1st that morning, and then that ends. That's a very firm range to March 31st. We haven't been as firm with that this year. We're very firm on that date range. April 1st through April 30th is going to be your online continuing registration. I know there's questions about that, having some flexibility around that. Right now, that's the date. Yes, we will move and work with those other things happening. It's just helpful to have a time where we push for that to be done as much as possible, so we have as much information moving forward as possible.
And the key thing, Jamie, with that is on the April 1st through the 30th is, yes, not everybody will finish it, and we know that. However, this is really our training time that we're trying to get our parents to get used to this notion that as we go forward, April 1 through 30th is the time to engage. And if we're just kind of waffling on that and say, oh, don't worry, we're not going to get we need to get this rolling to this level. And we're just hoping that would help your workload at the sites. We can get a lot of that finished and then move into new enrollment. So we will come up with a plan. We're going to look at April 15th and kind of just see where we are at that point, and then April 30th and see where we are at that point. But the emphasis through our communications from the district office will be, this is the time to get on, parents, and register. Nance?
Question. Is it mandatory that we do that school survey? Are you going to be coming back next year? Because
We're gonna hit that. We'll be talking about that.
That's correct.
Okay, so on week of May 4th, TKK new student enrollment begins. Week of May 11th, 1st through 5th middle high school new student enrollment begins. May 18th through May 29th, TK interest list window opens. June 11, last day of school. And July 6th through the 31st, that's where we do our summer enrollment here at the district office, because you guys aren't around, right? So as we move into youth in transition, Katie, if you want to take this.
All right. Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Again, my name is Katie Wu, and I am a proud Westview Wolverine in the mornings, and in the afternoons, I am the Youth in Transition Coordinator. Do you have the clicker? Thank you very much. Okay. So before I kind of go into the nitty-gritty stuff, I want to take a minute and just say thank you for the work that you guys do. Other than counselors, I would say that most of my referrals and emails come from you guys. So you guys are the front lines. Oftentimes, our families, when they come, they've been through a lot. You guys are the first interaction that they have. And oftentimes I hear that positive feedback. Oh, I went to so-and-so this school, and I spoke with this person, and they walked me through everything. So it really does make a difference, that interaction and how you guys set the tone. So thank you so much for that, and definitely please never hesitate to reach out, send those questions and emails coming. So I wanted to take a minute to kind of go over and clarify McKinney-Vento. If you've heard of it, great. If not, no worries. But basically, McKinney-Vento, the act, it's been around since the 80s, and it basically is what every school district has to abide by in order to comply. And proper identification is so important because oftentimes some of our families don't know that they can access these services. And before I came into this role, I had no idea what youth in transition was. Most of the time, staff I talked to are like, what do you do? What's that? Okay. So in order to be eligible, these are all the scenarios. I won't read every single one out to you. But basically, it's a pretty large umbrella of if a family lacks fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime housing, and some examples are listed down there for you. Most of the time for our PUSD families, they are in the situation of what we call doubled up. So maybe they've been couch surfing, maybe it's a situation where all of a sudden they might have to leave a domestic violence situation and they end up doubled up with a relative. Maybe it's grandma, grandpa, it's a friend, things like that. It's definitely not stable, it's not consistent. Our families who qualify do not have a lease on a place, so hence again, they could be kicked out anytime. There aren't any kind of laws protecting them. So again, why proper identification is so important so that we can get them the help that they need. I was gonna say any questions, but that's a teacher in me. Hold your questions, put them in the basket. I don't want to get candy thrown at. Okay. Okay, so a couple of new things. So this, I'm sure you guys all recognize. So when a family checks off temporary, and I know it's kind of small, so people in the back, we are living with another family or in transitional accommodations. Key note, due to financial hardship. So this is not because of personal or cultural preference. This is because we don't have any other choice. And that's something that's important to note. And again, if you are ever not sure, definitely please just shoot me an email. I'm happy to reach out to the family to further clarify. So if a family checks that box, temporary, they will then complete, we're calling it the RAST this year, not RASH, but RAST, okay? The Residency Affidavit for Students in Transition. It doesn't look too different. Some of you will recognize it on the next slide. So step one, I talked about, that's only if, again, they check temporary on the dwelling type. Then if you could please go ahead, because oftentimes with some of our families, it's difficult to get in touch with them. So when you have them in front of you and you think like, okay, you check that temporary box, maybe they shared with you because they felt really safe with you that they are living in a hotel motel. Awesome. Then you'll have them fill out the RAST. And then if you could please scan and email me that completed RAST form. You can also call me. Oftentimes, I do get those phone calls, and it's really nice to get background info from you because, again, the family has shared information with you, and then that gives me just context and more background, lets me know what resources they might need. And then just go ahead and file a copy of that RAST in the student's CUME file. Okay. So we added a couple of boxes here as well. So like I said, most of this is going to look the same if you have definitely enrolled a family before. But you'll notice that there's a couple of new boxes down here. Again, we're trying to differentiate between sharing housing with others due to economic hardship or if it's personal choice, because then they would not qualify. So it's just asking our families to be more explicit and so that there's not as much gray area, because one of the things with McKinney-Vento is that it's never really cut and dry. So it's always like, well, what about this? What about that? A lot of times it is on a case-by-case individual basis. Okay.
How do we get that form?
That is a good question. Is there a, Stacy, where should I, because what the counselors have put it on the intranet. Is there a good place to put?
So the form itself.
Yes.
So they are going to be on wherever they've always been housed.
Okay.
We are going to add it to.
Oh, sorry.
So my understanding is that these have never been part of the enrollment packet before. So we are going to make it so this year. So it'll be just like the verification, the residency verification form. This will be the option, so that if someone is checking the appropriate the box, the temporary, they'll have that option of the RAST right there to choose. Obviously, if they can't have a computer to access, or they're coming into the office to fill out their paperwork, you guys will have that ability. So whether if you want to keep a couple printed, or you could go to the regular page or the enrollment page, whatever's easier to grab the form for them. Right. Oh, I'm sorry. And so my understanding is, so the form itself is still in the process this year. Continue as status quo with the current form. This will be all up and running for the 2021 school year.
And we do have a Youth in Transition website. So if you just go to our Poway Unified website, if you just type in Youth in Transition, it'll take you to our website. And the forms are linked there as well. So that's another place you can access them. Okay. This is what the drop-down menu is going to look like. And again, we made a couple of changes. These are the same as you saw on the RAST, okay, the affidavit there. So nothing different. We're just trying to, again, streamline that. And again, asking our families to just really clarify their housing situation. Okay. And that's it. Yeah, short and sweet.
Keep trading microphones with Doug here.
Okay, very good. All right, we're going to continue on with our continuing student registration. Again, we talked about the April 1 through the 30th time frame. Interesting to note on this particular slide, with 22,359 families that did complete the digital packet last year, which equated to 33,437 student packets altogether. And yes, there were some issues along the way, and we were addressing them as we were going along. But we got through that year, which is really, really important. And then we're ready to embark into this year in a much smoother fashion, as we've learned some things from last year. So those stats are pretty good. So only 286 students never began a digital packet. And that just means that, of course, they didn't submit it with a wet signature and that type of thing, and it wasn't updated. They were still enrolled in our school, and I know that you all did your efforts to try to get people to finish. But still, their information was in there, and so then we kind of move forward from there. So that's what that looked like from last year. So we will, again, like I said, very, very important to relay this, and we will be relaying it from the district office in the communication sent from here, that this is the time, April 1st through April 30th, to complete the online application. And that third point, again, we're not having separate schools send out their communication. DO will do that. And then you all will need to come up with a time for registration assistance and computer access as well, right? Like last year. That will be separate. That will be in your principal message or that type of thing. That, of course, will not be coming from the DO. So continuing student registration process, the sites continue to review and accept the registration packets. Any updates to the health information must be shared with health techs. That's really, really important, and the appropriate site staff. This information is highlighted with that heart. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay, good. We're talking about that quite a bit here at the district office. The IT hosting of the registration refresher courses in March. So we gave that out. Parents and guardians will be instructed to sign and return ASAP to the current school site. And then the drop boxes for paperwork, including boxes for the next level feeder schools, middle and high school. So clarity on that one, Stacy. So what did we come up with ultimately on that one? We wanted people to do what again? Yeah.
So again, with the drop boxes, we're still kind of trying to determine if we'll make the boxes here at the DO or if you guys, some schools I know utilized that system last year already. So we will work that out and get some final communication out on that one. But our thought is in hearing from the schools who did utilize that process, it just made it much easier for families. It was a little more family friendly where, especially if it's them moving to the next level to a new school that they're not familiar with, for them to, what do I do with this paperwork? I'm going to now go to this school that I don't know where I'm going. So, but here I am coming to, let's say, the elementary school each day. I can just drop off my wet signature there. You guys at the elementary level or at the, the first level, the current level, you don't need to process that particular paperwork, but you've grabbed it, you've got it in a box, and then we can get that to that next site so that they can then take over with it and do what they need to do in the system. So we are. It's okay, and we're going to address this a little more too when we do the breakouts, just so if there are.
I just wanted to know what the expectation for the drop-off site is. So like I'm at a middle school right now, so I have 5 feeder grade schools I gotta get these from, right? For my personal example, are the feeder grade schools going to check it and make sure it's all signed accurately? Because if it's not, it doesn't do me any good. And then when those 6th graders come next year, they're going to be mad that they said, "Oh, I did it and turned it in." And I'm like, "What?"
A little problem.
Yeah.
So what's the expectation?
So we may have to talk about that a little bit. If we can make it where it's just really getting a signature, are you saying because of the initials too?
They got to initial everything and
Okay.
sign it and all that kind of stuff. And
Okay.
I want to make sure we're doing the correct thing for RB as well.
Sure. I would think that, again, as much as possible, if you can catch it when someone's, at the sites, if you can take a look at it. We just thought that the Dropbox itself might help to catch people so that they're not having to wait in line to actually hand over the page. So that might be a little give and take with that. You might.
I just want to know the expectation because I know our parents get upset if they think they've turned it in.
Sure, and that can be a discussion that we can have if that's a good thought, and maybe that's something that at least the current school could perhaps look at. Okay.
And that's a great comment because those are those things that are important. Definitely put that in the box there, and that is something we will need to work to clarify because that is an issue there that we need to work on.
I think we're going to also have to discuss this because, especially on the elementary level, we do not have the staffing to actually look at everybody's paperwork, especially middle school and high school.
Absolutely. So that's an area, like I said, these are those things that come up that we need to be aware of and work on moving forward so we make that a smooth process.
I think we do have to further look into this.
All right. Good. So, Doug?
No, we're not going to be putting that in the parent communication from the DO until we obviously figure this out. That would not be helpful. So we will do that. All right. So again, if you have questions, about this, and we will bring it up in our level breakouts as we move forward after 10 o'clock today, and those will be important pieces as well. All right. So new student enrollment, again, TKK begins the week of May 4th, like we've done before. And then 1st through 12th begins the week of May 11th, normal when the new come to your campus. So that's normal, correct? Nothing's changed with that. Well, there might be a question about that. Okay. All right. With everybody else? Okay. Is that fine? Okay, that's fine. Okay. Yeah.
So I think for them, we were trying to make it that they could. Our understanding is there's no reason why you can't. The forms are up there. The parents have it. That and we're referencing to. We're going to reference on the website just to see your particular site for specific times and dates. So if you guys want to start for whatever grade on the 1st, even if it's not TKK, knock your socks off. I mean.
Consulting the boss, Stace. All right. All right. We're going to talk about a few of the updates to the forms. And so I'm going to talk about the pesticide, the updated student enrollment form, and the chicks survey. And then we're going to talk about the TKP interest list and the new high school only transfer at the breakouts. All right. So the first, of course, is the pesticide form. And what are the key pieces here? Let's see. Notes. All right. All right. Okay. So this form should only be completed if the parent or guardian wishes to be notified about the pesticides, of course. A new form is required to be signed by the parent guardian every school year for continued notification. All right. Good. All right. The next is this particular Synergy snapshot. So at the site level, once the form is completed, sites will need to enter the request into Synergy. Under General, click on the drop-down arrow by pesticides and select Why Notify Me. Then you file the form in the student's queue.
So I know that that's new. So facilities is asking for your help with this for this year. And it's going to be mostly, really, it's just with your new enrollments that this would be any responsibility on your behalf. So if someone turns that in, again, it's just an optional form. So you're not going to get it in every packet. If they wish to be notified, then when you're in Synergy entering that student packet, please go to it's under General, and then there's a pesticide off to the right. It's like the second to the last, and you'll check yes. Then you're done. Just put that in their file, and what that allows the facilities to do a query, and then they can pull up. They will send all the notifications. That's nothing else is coming from the school. They're just asking for your help with the new enrollments to do that. During like the registration, so the continuing students, they're just checking it off online. Okay? So yeah, well, everything's different because it's online now.
Hold on. Sorry.
It's always been part of the normal enrollment packet, but it's optional. It's an optional form. It's always been there.
Jason, let me help you. So I think the question is kind of, you're seeing all the tabs across the top of the student window. It looks a little different than what you're used to. The difference is because depending upon your role within the district, the different tabs you'll see on the student window varies. Sometimes you see more, sometimes you see less. Most people in this room will see more on the student window, the general, the parent guardian, all the ones you're used to seeing. The online reg OLR is the last tab on the far right. So OLR, online registration, a lot of the fields that the parents are going to be updating online reg fall within that OLR tab. We thought it would be an easy way for you to consistently, in one quick place, to see all the stuff that would have been populated. But for most people in this room, you will see more than just this one tab on this window. So we're talking about two different topics. One would be online registration for returnings, and one is brand new enrollments. If we're talking about the online registration for returnings, this is an optional form which is available at the very end. It's still a paper form, and it requires the parent to sign and return it. They cannot optionally say yes or no to this online. It must be snail mail. This is, no, we cannot default this. So what happens is when the folks, when they do notifications, they do a query for anybody who has said yes. So by default, a no is equivalent to a blank.
Correct.
Again, facilities and maintenance and operations, they will take care of the notifications to the parents and when they receive the application. Okay? All right. Next, the race and ethnicity new student enrollment. Stacy's going to do this for me because it's a fun process. Here we go.
You guys keeping track of your bingo? That's like
Yeah.
just checking.
All right. So race and ethnicity, nothing new, nothing's changed on the form, on your new enrollment form. So that it's still a two-part question. Last year, what basically last year was the change. No longer can a parent or guardian opt out of answering this question. We have to retrieve this information from them. So again, two parts. The first part being where they select whether a student is Hispanic or Latino. It's a yes or no. The second part is the race. We are not able, by law, by ed code, to say, that again, to decline to answer. So what we're trying to do is to hopefully get as much information from the parents and guardians. So now what will happen is in a normal enrollment form, so new student comes in, if they check Hispanic, if they select yes, that this student is his, not yet, maybe. If they do select that they're Hispanic and they do not find any race that they feel that they relate to, that is, explains them, just take the paperwork and move on, okay? So, but that's if they select yes for Hispanic. If they select that no, they are not Hispanic, we need to have a race. I know that there were some issues last year where we had people who were very upset, who, because we felt like we needed to, and I think that, and it just comes from different directions over the years, that we were basically mandating that if they've selected Hispanic and then they did not select a race, I think that's where a lot of the tension from what we've heard here at the district kind of came into play. In your packets, in everybody's packets, there's an orange page. It is we made a couple of things. This one is a cheat sheet for you guys. So for you guys to take home, our hope is it has a little bit, not home, feels like home, for you to take back. And it has some talking points, some reasons, some explanations that you can give to a parent if they come in and they're like, how, is this legal that you are asking this information? What are you doing with this information? Our hope is that, again, that this gives you a little bit of language that you're able to use to help either, calm the situation down or make the parents feel more comfortable. Obviously, if you have something that pops up that isn't answered or, a parent is asking something additional, please feel free to give us a call and we will do our best to be able to give you something that you can get back to that parent. Again, our hope, we've also made, without the kind of cheat notes in there, part of the enrollment packet of that first page, your enrollment page where the parent is selecting this, the ethnicities and the races are all listed out on a page for them that explains the background and what the actual meaning is. So that might help them as well in choosing their answer. So that's there. Again, the cheat sheet is kind of made around that so you can see what they're seeing online, and then it gives you, again, some hopefully some cheater points or some talking points that you can use. Okay? So, cool? Yeah? Questions? Rock on.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right.
No, wrong way.
Wrong way.
Mark's up.
Mark's up. All right, Mark. Eddie. Or Diane or whoever.
He pointed this direction.
Okay, so I'll go ahead and introduce my team again, and we'll let other people talk who are more experienced on this different subjects. See you real quick. You'll see. The people online. All right, so again, Mark Griffin, my team is amazing. If you've all met with them, we've got Diane, Mickey, and Laura, and they're all here to support you. Anytime that you send an email for help into the SIS support address, which is the address on the bottom, they're one of the folks that help you out. And you'll notice that our hope is that by sending messages to the general help box, you're getting faster responses. All of us take vacations, all of us are sick. If you email one of us individually, you find that it gets delayed. Somebody's always watching this. So please, any questions going forward, anything synergy related, online reg, parents, whatever, please email that address. Thank you. Okay, so CalPads. I want to see if maybe Mickey wants to do this one. So Mickey's our newest, and she's doing a lot of CalPadsy work. So, okay, never mind. Okay, so as you know, CalPads is one of the most important things that funds everything within the district. Anything that you put into Synergy is going to get us or not get us money from the state. So the information that is put into CalPads is very, very critical that it be most accurate and most current. It does pertain into the LCFF. It does also go into Smarter Balance, and it also does help college applications. CalPads is driving everything educational based going forward. It's no longer this hodgepodge of different systems. In fact, when Mickey was working with SPED, they had a different system. That other system has now been retired and has been ingested into CalPads. This truly is the one-stop shop for everything educational based, all information about the student going forward, and it's only going to get larger and bigger. So it's here to stay, so please help us keep it as accurate, as current as possible. Okay, let's see. This is Diane. She knows this one.
Okay. I don't need this, but I'll do it anyway. The partial enrollment, I know as the push comes down, you guys you have to get your numbers in, because somebody at the district office is asking you daily for this, that, and the other thing. Please don't do a partial enrollment. We find kids without parents all the time. Those poor little kids are living in a house all by themselves. So, and additionally, search for the parent. We get so many split families, and that messes up online registration for the parents too. So do a real good search for the parent. If it is a name of with an ethnic, cultural name, really search for those. You know, Gonzalez/Martinez. You know, look farther than that one glance for us, because it's really hard for us to put it all back together.
Yeah, I can't reiterate that enough. A lot of the questions that I think a lot of the sites got last year when using online registration was the parent comes to you and says, I see one student, not the second student. What's going on? Well, it's because somebody along the line chose not to take the time to find the parent when enrolling the second student, and Synergy created a second record for the parent, and it is not linked, is not matched. That parent's going to be stuck, and they're going to end up in your office. So please take the time just to search for a minute.
Legal last name, must. What's on the birth certificate or the passport? There's no debate there. Okay, if a student has an IDT, the school of residence and use voluntary as a reason of attendance if they have an approved IDT. Here's something that happens. A student changes schools or comes into your school new, and the school of residency doesn't change, hit that validate button. Hit that validate button. You know, we find at this time, we've pushed a kid to such and such a school because that's what the grid code says. But if you push the validate button, he really goes over to the other school. So we do a lot of moving kids back and forth at this time. And we're already overworked. We work for him. The reason for attendance is the day that they are, the day you find out, or whatever day the ladies mark it in the transfer area. Only use pending when it's truly pending. You've given mom a piece of paper. She's going to get you the residency. They're staying in your school, but we still need the residency. We'll send out a query that all you do is run it, and you can find anybody pending or anything of that nature. So it'll be real simple for you. Okay, came from. Guys, you got to help us here. Came from is a mandatory item. Only TKs and TKPers can have new student. But maybe they came from PUSD preschool. Put that. Then we, because the longitudinal, that word data. CalPads. That helps us with that kind of thing. Next to came from, this isn't up here, but I'm going to do this anyway. Next to came from is moved. Guys, you got to fill it in. When the student is leaving your school for whatever reason, maybe they're going to Abraxas, maybe they're going to Poway High, put that in the move to and on the CUME page, on the grid, under PUSD. If the student is leaving, you put it in the year the student last was with you. Okay? You don't go forward to the next year, put it in and then no show them. That doesn't work. Put it in this year for us. We get a lot of questions about the update notifications of the little pictures up in the corner and who's supposed to do those. It's you guys. We don't know. So if you don't know how to find that, let us know, and we'll write out some directions and get them to you. Because we're supposed to be documenting everything now.
Well, in case if you don't know, when you're doing student notifications, you have the opportunity to have the notification expire. So it doesn't have to go forever. You could truly say this is a 1-year notification, and you could do it again next year. I know the sites sometimes are worried about if they leave it on too long. You truly can say this is good for 6 months, 1 week, whatever.
You guys provide it to Katie Wu. It's marked just that one area, and you provide it to her, and then there's people in there. There's fields you guys don't even see that they work with. I don't think we have a youth in transition button. Oh, we do? I thought we couldn't show at-risk kids. Okay, there's not an icon up in the corner. Yeah, because we can't point out at-risk children for any,
It will be going
I
away.
know.
It will go away.
Yeah, it's going to have to go away because we can't identify, we can't point fingers at people.
No, because the idea is when the student comes to learn, the student is learning, regardless of financial background. They're learning, and it doesn't matter. And some people will see that and give a stigma towards them. Can't have it.
If you, this is also on the online registration, so they can fill it out there too. But if you know a family is in the military, check and make sure that data has been updated. Again, we're talking money. That all comes down to additional funding. U.S. school entry date, enter for all TK-12 kids. Title III entry date, use the same date as the U.S. school entry date for all kids. The next one, primary language and home language. The data has to go in primary language, but let me tell you what happens if you don't put it in home language too. If you have an attendance letter and there's no home language, the letter won't print. Okay? So whatever is in primary, if you have frequent flyers and you know they're going to get letters, just go ahead and make sure something's in there. Every once in a while we have Diane Zimmerman push it all over there so we don't have empties. But we all know our frequent flyers, so just make sure that's coded for that particular purpose. Okay. Right now, this is elementary. Right now, no show is not working. So if you have a provisional right now, let me finish the whole thing, don't panic. If you have a provisional right now, please, School of Residency, do not enter it. And this is a temporary fix until the bug gets fixed. However, you work with Gloria to send the parent to the other school. If you put it in, it takes us about 20 to 30 minutes to get rid of that inactivation. If you put it in and exit it the same day, that's an active student with no class, your ADA will not balance. So if you have any out there, let me know. Okay, that was elementary. That part was all elementary. Okay, sorry about that. It has to do with provisionals. Now, you're going to start finding out that kids aren't coming next year, okay? Let's say they leave today and they're not coming back. You inactivate this year, and there's a sentence at the bottom. What do you want to do with next year's enrollment? Delete it. Okay, you're not deleting this year's, I promise. Just hit delete. That is for students that leave in the current year and are not coming back next year. Okay? At this time of the year, we also get questions about families leaving early, 3 and 4 weeks early, and marking them absent or inactivating them. And they're still coming back. Inactivate them. Leave next year's record. There's an option that says do nothing. So inactivate them this year so your ADA numbers aren't bad, and say do nothing for next year if you're positive they're coming back. Okay, you have to read that little box. If they're no, you want to delete it. Yes, because you're leaving. You know they're leaving. Okay, so they complete your school year with no problem? Right, okay. So we finished school this year and, oh, they're leaving to go today? Oh. You still have to delete it. You still have to delete it because they're not going to be, they're coded right now your school. So you do still delete it, inactivate and delete it so the next school can pick it up. Because you can't pick up a record if there's a record for a later year. No show them. Yeah, over the summer as you find out, or in August as you find out families aren't coming back, go ahead and no show them in, I call it the brown year, the ugly brown color, in next year, okay? If he leaves tomorrow, you inactivate him and do nothing in next year. And if he doesn't come back, then you go ahead and no-show him. The other thing with that, though, there's a little, on the enrollment screen, there's a Y and YOS? Year-end status. EOI. If you no-show a student, you're going to see that EOI says 155, which means he's coming back to your school. If you no-show him, change that to whatever you know. It might be 160, another California school. It's right there on the inactivation. It just helps with CalPads because it throws out an error.
And if they refuse to tell you where they're going next?
Call their mom. Then put refuse to declare. I mean, what are we going to do?
But for the codes.
Just go ahead and put the 160 for other California school, and then when they enroll somewhere, if it's in California, that'll work. If it's outside of California, we'll start hunting that down because it will come up in an air record.
Thank you.
We can't get rid of that lovely blue form. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. That's an LSS. I think it has to have a wet signature too.
Right. So what we're finding, kind of following on that, which is a pain point for everybody last year, that district wet signature page. We found that Sacramento has doubled down on wanting the wet signature. It's not a option that we can get out of, and they don't care if it's not going green. They want the wet signature for many reasons, so it will continue.
You can buy a house, you just can't say you're in the military. Online.
Thank you, guys. So basically, let's take a break. We'll do 15 minutes. Oh, we're still going? No, we're done. And then we'll pick up here when we come back. So what's a good time? 9? So let's come back around at 9 o'clock and we'll get started again. Thank you.
At the end, I can show you more quickly that.
I can't show that right now.
Okay. You know, there's original school entry date. No, there's original entry date and school entry date when you enroll. To me, it makes sense. The original is kindergarten. School date to me means okay, it's a new school, putting in this early. But I found some people who say, "Oh no, it's the exact opposite."
I was talking to those folks because they do report the Jamie's like, I don't care, you gotta stop.
There's some bingo stuff. Just wrap it up with those because they have a bingo.
Jamie like, walk.
No, I said after IT. Yeah. So Mark, you have to do your slide because there's a bingo.
Oh, that's important. I feel kind of bad because we were stumbling because like the slides look very different. That's why we all kind of like, this is not what I'm expecting this to look at. That's why like Nikki's like, what? And Diane's like, wait, what? That would be nice. We're improving.
I didn't do any of this. I'm still waiting for my handbook dates to go away. I'm still waiting for my handbook dates to go away. I was confused about the customer report because I got contradicted. So last year,
That's funny.
I didn't know where they got it from. I know.
No, but my great grandma, my grandmother was a little bit French, but yeah.
So I was trying to.
I know she's actually our. That's very unknown that you're sick. She's
But it's the idea still that I was trying to go around. People are sick or on vacation. So okay. Do you think would you feel comfortable with me saying that for retirement?
Regulatory retirement.
That we need to build the knowledge and have you capture your mind.
Right, so I'm working on other little projects. That'll be good. Let's turn it down.
I don't want to go there and be like, I didn't know. Yeah, I don't want to start that narration. Let's not go there. Here I'm trying to go around tonight and it's like,
Did you have to pass me over my late?
No.
we got cut off.
We got set up. Ours are- you haven't come up yet.
It's the same thing every year.
Okay, let's go ahead and head back to our tables, please. So we're going to have Mark cover a couple more slides here, and then we'll transition into our next section.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started again real quick. Just as a reminder, I can't stress this enough that if you need help this year going forward with any Synergy stuff, online reg stuff, whatever you need that's Synergy based, please email the SIS support team. Diana's looking to retire, so it's we're trying to go ahead and capture all of her knowledge. I've got her documenting and training the additional points, different staff with Mickey and Laura. So please, if you're emailing her, then you're not letting me capture her knowledge. And if she walks out the door, I'm going to blame you. So please, if you have any questions, please don't email her directly and say, hey, Diane, can you help me with blah, blah, blah? Please send it to SIS support so that we can go ahead and capture that and build that capacity within the team. So, and not me, because you know I'm slower than anything to respond. Okay, so just quickly to wrap up, with online registration, we're going to do a refresh trainer. We've learned a lot of lessons last year based upon your feedback from the sites, from the parent perspective. We've got the company to resolve a lot of issues that you experienced. So we're going to basically walk through the process as if you were a parent and if you were the front office staff. Those are the dates. You can attend in person at the DO, or you can attend online. I know it's it's hard to go ahead and get away from sometimes. So you can go ahead and live stream it if you want to. The link went away. We will send the link out so you can register. If not, it's just the same site you'd go to for like a TLC or CLC training site, and you'll see the sessions there. You can sign up. Of course, if you have any trainings, we've done a lot of work to go ahead and get knowledge that we know into the login page for Synergy. If you aren't used to it, on the bottom of that page when the login is, there's a little training icon. If you click on that, you'll see everything we know about anything about student information, how to use screens, when to use it, why to use it. Click on there, you'll see a whole bunch of stuff, and as well as trainings, different links for past recordings on different topics as well. And if you have any questions, just please put it in the card and we'll take care of it later.
Okay, this is like riveting, inter and intra. So this is a big deal. As we move through this, there have been a lot of changes. And the changes haven't really been around board policy and et cetera. The changes have been around procedures and how we're following that. So a big point is the intra-district versus the inter-district. So intra-district, what we're saying is that February 1 through March 31st window. Basically, that's going to be very firm. Okay, so our families that want to move into another school, this is their time to apply for that, and that's that form that's on our site, and they just go through and put that in. And we researched this. We went to other districts and pulled them, and the districts are very strict about that. They're not, we're falling in line with other district procedures on that. And then the other part is if a family moves into the district beyond that window, we need them to go to their school of residence. We're not gonna, and if they want to move that following year, they'll have to wait for that next window to do that. Okay. Yes. So as far as continuing students, we have that process as far as if a family, for instance, moves after our window. Basically, are you guys familiar with the link and being able to do that through, we just don't want it open because people use that window that link for just for all kinds of reasons. So you work with Gloria, and basically you'll give them a link, and that'll go on a different spreadsheet so that we can process those. Because we do recognize that a lot of families that are in your schools and move to a different school area want to stay in that school that they're in. So this is the way for them to be able to do that. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So yeah, so I think that's pretty much it. We have updated and we're putting that communication out. As far as the window, that's been going out to the community. It's been in newspapers, call outs, all kinds of things coming from the DO. Okay. Yes. So we'll follow the school. So some of those programs like academies and those kind of things, we're going to follow whatever the process is in place. If you're talking about a, I'm trying to think of a good example, but, and so we're talking Spanish intensive program. Are we talking about a program that they apply through the school site, or is? Yeah, so it's going to be the school site manages a lot of those programs and then lets us know pretty much, and then we follow suit with that to make sure that's fair. So no, we won't deviate on that, right? Academies are the same, yeah. Yes. Correct. Oh, they moved during the summer, but no, but what they're saying, they'll be in a completely different level at like going from a middle school to a high school or from elementary to, is that correct? Okay, if they're already in your roles, yes. So we will follow that same process. We don't want to disrupt that. Yeah. Correct. That's just continuing. Correct. So inter-district, that window was for intra-district. Inter-district does not have that window formally in place. That's something we'll continue to research and work with the county office on. Inter-district is actually a really, there's a lot of legal ramifications around it. There's so much as far as the appeal process for that is huge. It goes all the way to the county office of ed. It's really, really intense, actually. You don't want it to get to that level. So it's just got a different set of rules. So we're not following the intra-district process with that. We have to follow that as a separate thing. We want to get as many inter-district students in as possible because of the money that comes with that. So we get the ADA from that district, and we can, that's extra money for us right there, about 10 grand a kid. So there's these compelling reasons. She asked, there's no deadline. There's these compelling reasons that we look at. As far as deadline, not right now. It's pretty open at this point. Yeah, that may change as we move through the process. But the key is, though, if somebody puts one in, like let's just say in July, someone puts one in, we don't have to give them an answer till 2 weeks after the deadline, after school starts. Okay, so there's all these different regulations that do not apply to intras that do apply to inters. An inter carries a lot of weight compared to an intra legally. Okay. Okay. On that note, as far as compelling reasons, and I brought that up, there are certain reasons that we look at that are very important as far as how we handle those transfer requests. We can't displace a student within a neighborhood school area for any of these reasons. Okay, we have to now. You'll have SPED can do placements in their programs. We don't touch that. Okay, that's a special education function. But as far as us in our programs, and I'm going to be sending this out to all staff also. So there's a letter that will be going out probably today or tomorrow that gives all of this information. But bullying's a big one. I mean, we want to look at bullying, but we're not just going to say some people just know the bullying thing, right? So I always follow up on the bullying to the past school to see, is there documented bullying, what's going on? And it can get, there's a lot of passion and, because there are instances where a kid has been bullied and has to move. Continuing students, obviously, we don't want to disrupt that one, right? Siblings, a new student, we do want to try honor that whenever we can. That's a priority. And then staff, if you have a child, if you're an employee and you have a child in the district, that's also a compelling reason. We're going to try and definitely work with you on that. However, we just can't displace a student that lives in that area. And the big area where this is a concern is really elementary. Because elementary, we're held to those class sizes, and it's hard to make a decision on approving those until we have the lay of the land and we can actually see what do we have available here. If we've got a bunch of students that we've provisionally placed in another school that belong to that school, but we have compelling reasons, we can't approve those compelling reasons because we've got all these kids that deserve a seat in that school. Okay. And then the highly impacted schools, they stay consistent, but we do have some shifts with that. So basically, we can do a 1 year only. And the reason that this is important, I mean, there's not a lot of, I would think a parent would want the consistency of saying we're all the way through 5th grade, or, just letting them know, this is going to be a 1 year only because we can't be displacing. We already know ahead of time the school is very impacted, and, so we can't commit to a full 3-4 years of a transfer request. That's mainly elementary, but it can be at all levels, correct?
One thing, Jamie, just real quick. We noticed last year in the enrollment process that many sites included a staff member's student in the numbers without going through the process. And that is a problem because there could be a PRA, public records request, and people are absolutely watching that. So we really have to follow those things. So I know if you've got, a kindergarten teacher that just was hired and they have their little guy and then you just put them in, it's really not okay. So please be very, very cautious about doing that type of practice. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and this is a hard one. I hate this. I mean, I really want to approve staff kids. I feel like it's important. It's just that, as Doug said, we're monitored, and we have to look. We just have to have a consistent process we follow with this, and we have to follow the legal guidelines we have. But yeah, when I first started, that's we tried to approve as many as we could. It's just it's getting tighter, and it's getting and it's such a hard conversation that I really, it's tough. So this is a change, but a tough change, but we're going to have to do it.
Highlight these 1 year onlys because, I'm out of the habit of looking when they expire. They're good for the rest of my.
That's a good point. You're right. So those coming up, correct? Yes. Oh, this is really exciting stuff. So, yeah, so ed rights, FERPA rights, gosh, this one. But, I mean, we've made progress on this, and we have some set guidelines on this. So really somebody with ed rights, generally the parent, right? Or if you have, who else has ed rights? You're going to have a legal adoption. Another person with ed rights is going to be your caregiver affidavits, right? You're also going to have your power of attorneys that people will give ed rights to other, like a grandparent or step-parent. So those are people with ed rights. People with ed rights are going to be the ones who can enroll and disenroll, calling students out sick or excusing absences. Only ed rights holders can do that. Putting the emergency contacts in place, picking a student up and signing them out. There's more to that, we know, but that's really, we want the ed rights holder to be in the know and part of that process. So they can give permission to another person to do this. So-and-so is going to come to the school and pull my child for a dental appointment and take them. That's okay. The ed rights holder communicated that information. How do we document that? I would say on the actual sign-in, when you check their ID to see that they are the person the parent said they are, and then basically putting a note there that the parent called, emailed, or whatever it is that you have there. Signing any kind of documentation like an IEP or a 504. And I know there's the signing part where it's the attendance, but the agreement to change things, that's the part where only ed rights. So those are most of those areas. I'd like to think of education rights as decision making. Okay, anything around the decisions of the school. And you'll see court documents. Ed rights is the same as legal custody. If you see legal custody, that is education rights. Okay, physical custody, that is not ed rights necessarily. So, this wasn't my idea, but the step parents do not have educational rights. They hold FERPA rights. So educational rights versus FERPA rights. FERPA rights are the access. So access to records, okay? Access to information that is relevant to the child. Step parents, not all step parents have FERPA rights. Most of our cases do because the way that, and this is a federal law around FERPA rights, lives in the home with the biological parent and the child, at least, it wouldn't be every day, but kind of a day to day, they have them come and go throughout an agreement. So if you have a step parent that very close to the child, but does not live with the bio parent, they really have no rights at this point. I mean, if they've divorced or whatever's happened there, that step parent has no rights. We'll have some of those come through caregivers because we don't know where the bio parent is. Those are different situations, okay? What's interesting, yes? So checking, yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there in a minute. Here's your key is that it's not a huge deal for a step parent to get educational rights if the bio parent wants to extend those. They can do a power of attorney. Okay, it doesn't mean they're going to court to do this. And what's interesting when I researched this is you don't need both bio parents agreeing to this. One bio parent who's maybe married to that step parent, is married to that step parent, can just download, complete, and notarize power of attorney, and that will act as educational rights. It's temporary can be revoked any time by that parent. But it is enough that you would check the educational rights in Synergy and give them the same rights that the parent has as far as checking out and all of that. So that's your, like if you have step parents that are upset, that's the way that you can, okay, do a power of attorney. Yes.
Are we going back and removing
No.
rights
No.
from anybody?
No.
Parents?
No. So here's the deal. We're moving forward. As we encounter these, we're dealing with them. I've had some sites call to get the query for who all of our step parents are in our school. There is a query for that. We'll get that to you if you're interested. And they are doing that, but that's not a mandate. What we're asking is, moving forward, let's keep this in mind and go forward with this process, okay? No, not engage. Well, yeah. Yep, you can do attorney to pretty much anyone who's an adult, you know.
Without power of attorney,
No rights as a boyfriend. Yeah. Or a girlfriend. No. Yes.
At this point, can we ask for
No. Yeah. Yeah. Unless you have something to, that's the key here with this. So, unless something comes up that is like some evidence that that's not true, and generally the other parent's gonna clue you in pretty fast, but unless there's a reason, because they have stated that they're fraudulent, they're the parent, and we take that information as true information. And we know people aren't always honest, but you know, then we would go back. So if they lie to us, people can lie to us. Yeah, we're not gonna go and do the marriage license, etc. Yes. Yeah, we need to do that. I think that's a good idea, actually. Mhm. Yeah, so one, besides all of the work around that, to do, you know, all of that, it's intrusive. I mean, and you know, and yeah, so it's just not something that they are required to give us, okay? So at this point, we're going to take their word for it unless we have a reason not to. Right, it's very difficult. And Diane threw hers away, so, yeah. All right. So just be aware that a step parent can't sign out a student without permission from the parent, call a student out sick or excused until they've done that power of attorney. So permission of the parent, right? Here's the other key to that, your emergency lists. And I've sent out lots of emails about this. Your emergency contact list is not people who are allowed to come and check out the kid. Unless, so here's where the emergency checklist comes, is you have a student, here's a scenario, a student shows up and has a fever. You call the parents, you're trying to get ed rights holders to deal with this, can't get a hold of them, go to your emergency list. They can come and get the kid, okay? That's the whole point of it. Or you have a major issue in the school, you know, where you just can't get a hold of that parent. And that's why we have that emergency list for emergencies. It's unusual type things, okay?
not an orthodontist appointment.
Not an orthodontist appointment unless the parent called it in or emailed or gave you approval for that. So we're not doing that. And I mean, there's been cases around this where there's somebody on a list and the parent had no idea and there was some just pulling kids out and it turned, there's been a lot of those where it's turned out to be a really bad situation. And so we need our parents to know exactly where their kids are at all times. Okay, that's the key.
The release two was put in for another district. I mean, we can try to hide it, you know.
Yeah, because it's in there. I know, it's a pain. Yeah. I know, it contradicts, right? Yeah, I agree. So is it correct that's not going to show up?
I'll try to hide it.
Okay.
Okay. We'll hide it in the parent and emergency. Okay.
Just one more quick.
If we can.
So that's a good point. Please write that down. So permission to pick your kid up in an emergency or when we can't reach you is what we should have under there, right?
That might also be after school too. They can pick them up after school when it's. Absolutely.
Okay, so what's wonderful, this has been like a 2.5-year deal, but we now have a FERPA box. Okay, thank you. And that's not our fault, that is Synergy. And basically, it just took that long. In fact, at one point, they said, no, there's no need for that. And I'm like, and then other districts jumped in and basically, oh, so this is a real deal. So we have this in place now. Excuse me? No, so yes, so Ed Rights is going to have FERPA rights. Okay? But FERPA rights will not necessarily have education rights.
Great question. So actually, technically, if you go ahead and give a parent education rights and FERPA rights, what's going to happen is the portal is going to shut down part of the system. They will not be able. They won't be able to update information. They won't be able to update emergency contacts. They will not be able to see certain private stuff. Do not do both.
On that, don't do both. Don't mark somebody you live with and mailing aloud, both of them. Don't mark two. You either live with them or they get mailing. It doesn't mean they don't live with them. It just means out an extra.
Okay. You got that. So pick lives with, mailing allowed. Don't do both. Okay. It's like I think of the Ed Rights, FERPA rights with new TV when you're little pushing all the buttons at one time. See how many you'll push in. Yeah. Okay, so parents with Ed Rights can edit contact and emergency information. Let's talk about provisional students. So we all know what elementary folks know what a provisional student is. Secondary folks do not, probably. But those are strict rules on class sizes. Families, either during regular registration or are new to the district, are not able and aren't in the carryover from the year before, we may have to find another school for them, and this creates a lot of anxiety, and which it makes sense that it would, right? But it's a difficult one. So one thing we want you to do is not say that we're closed, or we're closed. We're temporarily filled to capacity, because it could change, and we do try and pull kids back as things change. The other thing is, in LSS, in our department, as we're working through these, we may add a teacher, or things can change depending on the need. Okay. So you mean, well, you can track them with provisional. You can. If you're talking about I'm so sorry. I need to change my. So this wouldn't apply to you.
There is a conditional box. It's on the PowayUSD tab.
We are never provisionally placing anyone in middle or high school at this point. Yeah.
It's in the PUSD tab. Undersized, and if you need more, it's just where we put it. Words.
So what's important that really can throw things off too is we're mandated by board policy to go back to all of these provisional students and query whether they are wanting to stay where they're at the school we place them, or if they want to come back to their school, a school of residence. And that's actually a big deal. And I lost my train of thought. Thank you. So really, when we need to be able to find out who these students are, and what's really important is that they are listed as provisional. So when we have this, what we've seen some errors that have come up is involuntary transfer. Yeah, they don't have a lot of choice, but it's not in this. The involuntary transfer is really around drug use or some behavior discipline thing that we use. Okay, so it catches on a different set of data. Or even voluntary intra-district. What word provisional is its own animal, and we're held to different rules. And where it can really snag us is if we've missed some coming into this time where we're setting up classes and we have a full class, everybody's good, and all of a sudden, oh, I wanted to go back. You guys didn't call us. We go back, oh, we didn't call you. You legally do have the right to come back, and it can just throw things off at that point, okay? So really work on making sure provisional students, please mark them as provisional. Good point. So once they return, we do need to uncheck the provisional tab. Not sure what we're doing here.
That just shows the provisional transfer. That's what you put in.
You want to come talk about?
So there are two places for provisionals. So the first is demographics. Please put provisional transfer and reason for attendance. There's a specific provisional transfer. And then Jamie, the next one, please. And then in the PUSD tab, you've got to check that provisional box. It will not come up as a provisional if that box is not checked either. So we need it done in two places, please. And then when they come back to your home school, if you call them back because someone dropped, uncheck that provisional so we don't query them and they're like, we're already back. We had a few of those this year. So anyway, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Some important reminders. So IDT synergy changes will be done by the school sites, not IT. And then, again, I say this every year, but it's to avoid problems. Please don't give any information to parents about seats availability, okay? The reason for that is way less last year, thank you. Okay, so that's shifted, but when I first started, it was wild. I mean, it was like, I know we have seats because they said we have seats, and I'd be like, yeah, but that's before this happened, and then you have to explain everything, and they don't really understand what you're saying. They just know that they were told there were, and now there aren't. So there's stuff going on all the time as far as the parts moving, and we can't just definitively say that, okay, because it creates issues later. Even around buying a home in the district or in their residency, just push them back and say to the DO, and they're welcome to call us, but basically it just creates a lot of issues. But thank you, you guys have done really well for the most part. We still have some. We still have some, so those some, please, yeah. You can accept copies of birth certificates and immunization records. That's something that comes up. Okay. And here's Doug Johnson.
Yeah, and back to it. Here, buddy. I'll take this little thing. Perfect. Well, Christine Cloutier is out on medical leave, and so I'm going to be sharing information about EL with all of you per her information. So I'm going to kind of read through it to make sure that I am capturing all the key pieces of what she would want to communicate if she was here today. So the first one is the languages section of the new. Please be sure, there it is. Please be sure these 4 lines are completed for each form. Chinese is not a language and ask the parent which dialect they speak, Mandarin or Cantonese. And if you see Chinese written on the form, then you need to change that. All right? Yes. Oh, all right. Is that our first? Oh, all. All means all. All right. Synergy snapshot. If a language other than English is entered anywhere on the new student enrollment form, 1, enter T as a current language status in the English language learner view. 2, please note the effective date must be the date the student began school. 3, enter the language other than English as a primary language in Synergy. This is making sense to all of you because I have never done any of this, so I have no idea. So for any student transferring directly from another PUSD school with no break, they have not enrolled anywhere else in between, we would not make changes to any Synergy field. However, let the ELIA know if the child is EL and that the student has transferred from another PUSD school. Okay, good. If the child was in PUSD, then left for any period of time and is enrolling back in PUSD, change them to a T because we don't know their current status. The T signals at EL Data Tech to look up their current status in CalPADS. This is a lot, people. Wow. All right. For any student transferring directly from another PUSD school with no break in their attendance, they didn't leave and go to San Marcos and come back. They have not enrolled anywhere else. We would not make changes to any Synergy field. However, let the ELIA know if the child is EL and that the student has transferred from another PUSD school. If the child, so that makes sense? Okay. Okay, if the child was in PUSD, then left for any period of time as enrolling back in PUSD, change them to a T because we don't know their current status. The T signals the EL Data Tech to look up their current status in CalPADS. Okay.
Stacy's going to send that out to the site, so she's going
Oh, good.
I'll make a, since Christine's not here to really
Yeah, those questions. That's beautiful. Thank you. So do I need to continue on with the next many sentences? Okay. All right. For any student who is enrolling in TKK directly from a PUSD preschool and had another language listed in Synergy in the primary language or home language fields, you may change either field when they enroll in TKK to reflect whatever the enrollment form states at that time. California does not provide EL services to preschoolers, so the language of record should be whatever is reflected on the TKK enrollment form. So it doesn't come from preschool, really the bottom line. Okay, yeah, that was good. All right. I am a good reader. Thanks, guys. Student enrollment form. The date first enrolled in U.S. school, public or private, in grade TK or above. You will use this date to fill in 2 fields, U.S. school entry date and Title III entry date. This must be done for all students. IT will sort out the rest. Okay. The next slide, Jamie, is just where you enter the information. Okay. All right, Stace, that's where we are. Moving on, new student enrollment form, page 2. Give a copy of both pages of the new student enrollment form to the ELIA to determine if they need to be tested. Okay, you guys have this. I can see it. The EL data tech is the only person who can change the primary language in Synergy. Good? All right, perfect. Love it. When students are now in EL student transfers, Jamie, are we still there? We'll continue in the next one. To EL student transfers. Okay. When students are leaving the school, regardless of whether they are going out of the country or state to another California district or to another PUSD school, please notify the ELIA as soon as possible. Our orange working folder needs to be part of the cumulative record when sent. You can use the EL icon to determine whether a student is EL or not, so you can notify the IA if needed. Okay, good. That makes sense? That's it. Thank gosh. All right. Thank you. Good reading, Doug.
Okay, so this is our on year for California Healthy Kids survey. So
Hold on. This one's out.
Wow, I've never needed one of these in my life, but okay, so this is the year for California Healthy Kids survey, and we're going to be brief, and it's going to be easy. 5th grade, let's see, where did we go? 5th grade requires positive permission. So 5th grade, I'm sorry, but it is still, they'll fill the form out, return it with your registration packet, marked, yes, my child can take the survey. No, they can't. You'll go into Synergy and mark it in the box under California Healthy Kid. It's a drop down. It will be a Y or an N. 7th, 9th, and 11th grade, you get off again. It's still passive permission. By that, the parents will have a notification. Yes.
It is a form. State requires it snail mailed. It is not returned to you, and because of that, it cannot be recorded digitally from the parent.
So they print it out and turn it in.
They print it out and mail it in.
No, not 5th grade, 7th, 9th, and 11th.
So, thank you. Yeah. There's no checkbox in the online reg that says yes or no. We'll talk offline.
Send me any questions you have, email, and I'll meet with Mark. It should be one that just is downloaded like the rest of the registration forms. They sign it and give it to you with... Right. So you just have to give it to them. It should just still, on a continuing student registration, it would still be available for them to download and just send into the school.
It'll be at the very end of the packet when they have all the different forms, the required and the optionals. This will be one of the forms listed in that list.
5th graders only.
Last year it wasn't in because we had a year off. This year, because we're going on year on, it will be visible for the first time.
Yes. Yes. Okay, 7th, 9th, and 11th. It's information sheet only. It says, parents, if you do not want your child to participate, you must send a written letter through snail mail to me, not you. I will get that. I will enter it into Synergy for you. And then when you're ready to do your survey, I will let you know what students at your site will not be taking it in 7th, 9th, and 11th grade. Okay? So you don't have to do anything with it. If they want to see it, they call me and they can come sit with me and go through it, not bother you at the school. Okay? Here's where you'll list in the Healthy Kids box. Again, it's a drop down. It's a Y or an N. Now, if at 5th grade you do not have enough students return them, you will be sending them out again through the classroom teacher. You have to have at least an 80% return rate. Okay, so I think Stacy's going to send all the forms out to the school. So you just happen to have a copy of them if you need them. Okay. The to-do list. Decide with your administration team who's going to be the site coordinator. So 5th grade, who am I going to talk to? Is it you in the office? Is it an OA? Is it a teacher? But you need to let me know that. Okay. 7th, 9, and 11, you're going to decide which class and or homeroom you're going to use for administration. Elementary, it's always the 5th grade class. You'll get a proctor instructions and confidentiality signature page that all staff who administers has to sign, and it stays at your site. Do not send them back to me, please. They stay at your site. We've had incidents where parents go, their child comes home and says, I took this survey and they asked me this question. And the parent calls me up, goes, I never signed that. I'm sending them back to you. You're going to pull the signature page and say, yes, here's your signature. Okay? And you need to collect and verify all staff has signed and submitted the confidentiality pages. Now, you will run the class list, or someone at your site will run the class list for your teachers, okay? And that will just be the query that Diane's created. I'm sure we can push it out again that says, please list yes, no, or blank. Blanks are considered no's. If we don't have an affirmative, they don't take it. Please don't let them take it thinking the parents just forgot. A blank is a no. Okay, the coordinator is going to monitor the return of the permission slips, meaning you need to get that 80%. You're going to retain the permission slips at the site for 3 years. That's state law. Resend the permission slips by class. If the return rate is below 90, I'll say 80. 85 is ideal, but I'll take 80. I can't keep beating a dead horse. Meet with 5th grade team to select the date for administration. The survey is done online, and again, you collect the confidentiality pages. The administration window for all grade levels, month of October. Can't be before, can't be after. We have to have 30 days from time off for the kids to get accurate usage numbers. Okay. 7th, 9th, and 11th. Please let me know your selected date for administration by September 18th. District office will compile the parent opt-out letter already done. I will enter the non-takers. You'll receive your opt-out lists. The high school and middle school will receive your opt-out list from me September 28th. So I'm going to send you an email and say, here are the 13 kids at your high school that can't take it. Then you will need to notify the teacher in the class that it's being administered in. Okay, class list run prior to Chicks Administration Day and given to staff to make sure they do not take it. So what I say is run your class list. When I send you those names, highlight them and then distribute them to your teachers so they know. Okay. There is a mistake in there. I apologize. Survey completed online. Collect confidentiality pages and save at school site. You don't have to meet with 5th grade teams 7, 9, and 11. Just wanted to see if you were awake. Okay, next. All right, there you go. There's our chicks for the season. Any questions, you can feel free to call or email me.
Thank you, Cindy. Special ed, do you guys have anything you want to share with the group? You have to come up here. It's the rule.
Hi, everybody. So we just wanted to send two quick reminders. One is regarding enrollment. If you have a new student that comes in with an IEP, just a reminder that anyone that should be in a special day class, and it's hard for those of you who haven't read IEPs before to know what that means. We used to do it by percentage on the IEP on the FAPE Ed setting page. Anything over 50% would come through us at the district office, and we would do the placement. We're just asking if there are any questions, and you, even if it's below 50%, please contact us and we can let you know if the student should be enrolling right at the site or if they need to come through us at the district office and we do a placement. The tricky piece is there are students at our neighboring districts who are below 50% because they're pushed into general ed classes for the majority of their day, but they truly have significant needs and have a one-on-one aid and services that we will need to monitor here at the district office. So it's best if you have questions just to contact us and we can guide you through the process. The other piece is just to piggyback on what Jamie said about IDTs. I've already had 2 calls this week from parents wanting to go to a school that's not their school of residence, and they had contacted the site that they want to go to, and someone at the site had told them that they do have room next year and that someone was going to be pulling them into their site through the system. So both students are in our day classes, so that is done through an IEP placement, and they wouldn't necessarily even need an IDT. So that was tricky, and it's hard for our parents who don't know any better because they take that word of whoever told them that as black and white, and they're expecting to go there. So now the IEP team has to undo possibly what was told to them. So if the student has an IEP, the IDTs, if they're a resource student, those are going to be a little tricky this year too, because all of our schools, at least at the secondary level, are very impacted, and our special ed numbers are going up as enrollment goes down at some sites. So staffing is really impacted as well. So IDTs are a sensitive topic at the moment. So again, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. We're happy to help and guide you through it.
Thank you. Thank you, Tiffany. I was going to say Jody Payne and myself have been working on the records, retention. What do we do with records? We're going to do a separate web. We didn't want to do it here because just it's a lot of information. So we do have a plan and a process for next year. We will do a separate webinar concerning records, retention, records requests, and how we're storing those, etc. Okay? Okay, health. Who's up? Stacy. Okay.
Yes. Breakout session so they can hold them. Okay. And not do the whole PowerPoint. Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, yeah. No questions. Gotcha. This is a really quick update, anyway. Last year was a lot more nervous because there were so many changes, but this year we actually have no changes to our immunization requirements, so I'm very happy to say that. So I'm just going to kind of touch on what's going on as far as enrollment, what's required for health. As you guys know, when a student enrolls, the parent has to provide the shot record, or they have to show that the immunizations are up to date. And then if there's a medical reason, that's where we start to talk to our health technician and find out more information. So this, you guys are familiar with this. This was new as of July 2019. So any student coming into the district, they have to follow, this is actually for us, TKK through 12th grade. They have to follow that top line. Students that are going 7th through 12th grade, if they come in, they also have to have the Tdap. So T for teenagers, but it has to have the P for pertussis. So just so you guys know, there's a lot of different versions of that vaccine. And then for 7th grade advancement, we're also checking for the Tdap as well as the 2 varicella. And the two ways students can be enrolled, obviously, there is unconditional, meaning that they provided all the documentation that's required, or a permanent medical exemption. The second way they're enrolled is conditional, which means that they have a temporary medical exemption, they're a foster student, they're youth in transition, or they provide a shot record and they're up to date on their immunizations. So there's different ways that they can be enrolled, either conditional or unconditional. The other thing is if they have an IEP, so that kind of comes into play too. I want people to be aware of that. Before we look at excluding a child, make sure they don't have an IEP. Because if they have a current IEP, then we just write IEP on their blue card. If their IEP ends and they exit out of an IEP, then actually vaccines are required at that point. So that's just something to keep in mind. So just a few key points. I call this the fine print of the immunization law because it's not easy to find. I actually have to read the FAQs on that Shots for School website because some of this information, but our parents are very diligent. They know every word in that law and they know they will copy paste it and email it to me. So just a few quick things. Students moving from one campus to another within the district, they do not have to meet the immunization requirements and they're given 10 days. So what we consider there is a new parking lot equals a new school. So if you have a fifth grader going into middle school, they have to meet the immunization law. They have to meet all the requirements. And the one thing I'll say about that is our health technicians, if they are a fifth grade health tech, they're being very diligent. We're running queries in Synergy. And we're contacting those parents so that when they come into sixth grade or an eighth grader going into ninth grade, we're really trying diligently to let them know that our records are not accurate, they're not up to date possibly, we may not have recorded all their immunizations, and we're trying to figure out those discrepancies in advance, so just so you're aware of that. And then any continuing student that's discovered, that means a first grader through fifth grade, if we do find that they're not in compliance, we're also supposed to give them a 10-day notice as well. So that's all part of the fine print in the immunization law. Students being admitted from outside of the country, there's no change there. If they don't have shots, no seat. There is no grace period there versus a student that's coming in from out of state. I know it sounds crazy, but we always allow 30 days for their records to be transferred. And then if they don't have the vaccines after those 30 days, then we give them 10 days before they're excluded. And then finally, personal religious belief waivers for all of our sixth grade families with kids going to be advancing to seventh grade. We did write a letter. It came from the district. We alerted all those families that they're going to have their immunizations up to date by seventh grade. Fortunately, per school, there was only maybe a handful of kids. So those are really kind of going away, which is good news. And then medical exemptions, just a little summary of what's required on those. Temporary medical exemptions, just kind of watch out for that because we do get those in and the expiration date can be the child's graduation date. That's actually not acceptable. It has to be only 1 year from the date that the physician signed it. And then the last one, medical exemptions, again, are required for a history of varicella disease. That's something that we are catching up with as a district because we have documented a lot that the child has a history of disease. And in the past, a registered nurse from our district could call the family and go through questions and say, yes, they have a history of disease. But the state no longer allows us to do that. So they have to go back to their doctor and get a medical exemption for not only history of disease, but also we don't accept positive titers, and that's where they go and get a blood shot and they can show immunity to a vaccine or to the immunization. That is a 10-day turnaround, yeah, especially around enrollment. Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, so we're alerting families. We've done queries, especially those kids going campus to campus. The first grade through fifth grade, those that are continuing students, we're not actively pursuing those. So just keep that in mind. We're not trying to find every single person that doesn't meet the requirement. It's just if they're discovered. It's more of the campus to campus is where we're catching them. And then obviously when they're advancing into seventh grade. This is just an FYI, but starting in January 2021, this is interesting because we've had like the South Park doctor, and we had a lot of doctors that are writing a lot of medical exemptions. But the one way that the state is now tracking that is if a doctor writes a medical exemption, they have to also file it with the registry. And because herd immunity is based on a school site having 95% immunity. That's how we stop the spread of disease. So they're going to track if a school site falls below that 95%, then the California Department of Public Health is going to start investigating those. So like South Park Doctor, who's probably written over 200 medical exemptions in our school district, if there's not a medical reason why, then they're going to start investigating those doctors. So we're going to see that come up. And if there's a change in the look of that medical exemption form that comes, that the parents start to provide, I will let everybody know. I'll send out an email what that looks like. But that's supposed to start to happen in January. And then one other thing that we're starting to get, this is more of with the anti-vaxxers, they don't want their medical information shared. So during enrollment, if you see this form, we don't do anything with it. We just file it in the child's health file or in their CUME file, because we don't share immunization. We don't share any personal information with any third party, outside party. So we don't have to do anything with this, just file it away. And then we're just streamlining also because of the way the new enrollment, all the forms, the health forms will have that heart, which we talked about earlier. So if you see a form with a heart, it goes to the health technician. And we'll send those forms out to all the health techs as well. So those are but this is what that's on every medical form. So all the medication authorization forms, diabetes packets, anaphylaxis forms, they will all have that heart. And then to make it simpler, if a parent goes on that step 2 under the enrollment on the website, if they click immunization records, it's going to take them directly to the immunization page. It just makes it easier for families to find the information. And then for continuing registration, we have worked a lot with IT. We're trying to streamline that process. So we added a descriptive page. Instead of having the forms online, this descriptive page will actually just have a link to the actual form that parent needs to provide. So there won't be any confusion. We had a lot of parents fill out for anaphylaxis and EpiPens. We had them put it on the medication authorization form. So this is just an improvement in our system. So we're very excited about that. And then this is just kind of a flow chart that's in the packet. And if you didn't get one, there was more on the table out there, but it's just a flow chart. It kind of goes through what to do if they're immunized or not immunized. And then also in the packet is those clinics. This is for people that don't have health insurance or are underinsured or don't have the financial capability to get immunizations. There's a long list in English and in Spanish of where they can go. That is not changed from last year either. And then if you have any questions, I'm really happy enrollment's, when it's in April, so all the nurses, everybody's on staff. So if you guys have any questions, just call Health Services. And just the last thing about the COVID-19, we are working very diligently with the County Public Health Department and the CDC. If we get a notification, we're working really hard to get it out to you guys the same day. We've provided all of our health technicians with masks. So if we do have a student that's on campus, isolation is key. Put them in a mask, keep them 6 feet away from any other student or employee. And obviously, we're going to get them off campus as soon as we can. But if we have any more new information, we're going to let you guys know as soon as possible. So if there's any, if we actually have a case, then the public health department will let us know about school closures and things like that. Okay.
Thank you. Bingo. Wow. Yeah, I think so. So while we're doing this important work, we're going to take a break here and let's see. Yes. So 20 after. We're going to come back in here. Elementary will be in the front. And secondary, which is middle and high, will be in the back of the room. Thank you.